Breaking COVID protocols, code, reducing tension.
Exactly.
Okay. So So Tom, thank you. Thanks, Russ. So Tom, did you respond to those additional recipients? I will go through my email list and let those folks, the additional folks, know as well.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess we'll, it looks like we're ready. So we will call the meeting to order. And being that this is a community engagement meeting, Russell and Hava will be helping to facilitate the actual meeting portion, to do our Q&A and hopefully put the community's comments into our process for making a final decision, which we would hope to do at the next full board meeting, which is December 8th. So with that, can we have a motion to approve the agenda unless there are any changes?
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So moved. So Russ, you have the com.
All right, so first off, I'll thank everybody again for coming out tonight. We really appreciate hearing comments and people who are taking active interest in our school system. The meeting starts off with the state of the district and concerns around morale and school environment, and I'll turn that over to you, Tom.
All right, thank you very much. First of all, I want to say I'm sorry to everyone who was waiting. We had some technical difficulties in the cafeteria, which forced us to move over to the auditorium. That caused some more technical difficulties. So I really apologize for the wait and the delay in starting and the confusion for all those on Zoom. But we were able to get it rectified pretty quickly, and we're ready to go now. So thank you so much. And again, sorry for that inconvenience. I'm Tom DeBolsey, and I am the superintendent of schools. And I'm so glad all of you showed up here in person and showed up online for this really important issue. The first couple of months of school have been really difficult. As you've seen in our schools and probably heard in memos and emails, newsletters from the principals going home, it's been a difficult start. And I think our teachers have done really well and have done a fabulous job of getting everybody back in school, getting things started. But across the entire country, across our state, and in our community, COVID has really caused some difficulties, and it's caused everyone a lot of stress and anxiety. And I just want to say our teachers are working really hard to meet the needs of the students and meet the needs of the families in our community. And I've become acutely aware over the last several weeks of how difficult it's been, how stress-inducing that has been on the teachers and on all the staff. And I brought this issue up at the last board meeting, where I really wanted the board to consider ways that they could help alleviate some of the stress and alleviate some of this anxiety, and listen to the teachers and what their concerns were, and why it's been so difficult and so tiring and exhausting for the start of the year, but also hear from the community and the families about what their concerns are and what they think we could do to alleviate this stress and this exhaustion. So tonight, I really hope is an opportunity for all of us to come together as a community and create some win-wins. What can work for the teachers and relieve some of the stress and the tension, and what can work for the students and their families as far as meeting their needs and giving them the quality education that we've always been able to provide here in Hartford. So I'm really hoping that tonight we can hear some really good solutions, remedies to this issue we're having. we'll leave it to the board to make some comments, and then if, how you want to facilitate it for the people here and the people in Zoom to give their input.
All right, as was alluded to, tonight is like a fact-finding mission, so we can work collaboratively to figure out what is the best solution, accepting that we may not have a solution that pleases everybody 100%. But together, we should be able to come up with ideas that are worthy of consideration and figure out what we can do to make this situation better. We will, as Coach alluded to, we will be talking about this on the meeting at the 8th, and you're all certainly encouraged to come either by Zoom or in person again, so you can see the deliberative process in action. Anything you want to add, Coach?
I think that capsulizes our thinking at this point. We need as much information as possible. This is a very difficult time that we're experiencing, and we're not immune to the stresses that the whole community is under. Those of you that are out there that are employers know the difficulty we're facing around finding support staff and support help for our schools across the district. So hopefully, as the result of this evening, we should be able to come up with some plans that'll help reduce some of that stress. So thanks, Russ.
Okay, so now we can open it up to public comments, concerns. And I would like to stress that I know this is an emotional issue for many of you, but let's work together collaboratively. Oh, Mr. Merrill.
I would just like, if I can, make a statement to put what we're doing in context.
Absolutely, Peter.
So there was a story on National Public Radio about the national trend of school districts facing the exact same issues we are facing right now. And I'd like to quote a small portion of that to give you some idea of how we're not alone in facing that. And the quote is, Burbio, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, an organization that tracks school district websites, says these closures are an accelerated trend that in the month of November affected 858 districts and 8,692 individual schools so far. So shortages of teachers, issues around stress, lack of resources and so forth are a national problem at the moment. And that when we go out there and say we are short of teachers, we need to hire additional staff to try to deal with some of the issues we're facing, we are competing with the rest of the nation. So we, as a school board, have come to you in part because the tools we have to address this issue are very limited. We don't have the ability to magically hire people who are not in the workforce. We don't have the ability to address issues around whether or not people have taken vaccinations, they're following the mask rules, they're doing the other things to deal with COVID. So we need to deal with this as a community, which is one of the reasons we reached out to you.
Any other comments before I get back into it? Yes, Nancy.
Quick. We, the board, really do want to hear from you. We want to hear what you need and what can make it better for you as the public, as teachers, and as parents, because I'm not sure who are out there for sure, who are the teachers and who are the parents, but we really do want to hear from you. And so we encourage you to take this opportunity to talk to us. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so as getting back to the public participation portion, I think initially limit comments to about 5 minutes. Everyone will get a chance to talk. However, we're going to let everyone have their first chance before somebody comes up for a second round. And also understand we have Roy Hawthorne monitoring Zoom, and we will be getting questions over Zoom. And I think, Roy, if we can't hear it, or maybe you could, for the audience, you could repeat the question or this comment so the rest of the audience can hear it. Oh, and, okay, yeah. Sorry,
I wonder if people should come down towards the front.
I was getting there. And the way we're going to do this is, if you want to say something, come down either side, come closer to us, so it'll be picked up on the microphone. So the people on Zoom will have this microphone. We don't have a standing one like they do in the town meeting in March, but this should hopefully pick it up so that everyone can hear your valuable comments, including those participating by Zoom. So we're ready. So the first one's always the hardest. Okay, she stood up first, so please enter, come on down. We don't bite that hard.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's good. And introduce yourself and then.
Hi, I'm Katie McCarthy, and I'm a parent of 2 students attending Hartford High School and 1 student attending Ottaquiche Elementary School. It's been several years since I taught in the elementary school classroom, and I can't imagine the magnitude of what all of our educators are experiencing. Teaching and caring for students during the pandemic, I am so thankful for the thoughtful, smart educators and staff that my children encounter every day. So I just want to first. I've read the letters that the HEA and DBS, OQS, and White River educators have posted as part of your documents online in a Google folder to better acquaint myself with the current issues that are drastically affecting our elementary students and schools. Within all the letters, the EL curriculum seems to be a common theme. I'm sure that the EL curriculum was pushed out this year in hope for a normal school year. We all have that hope. But we know now that that's not the case. So should our educators be beholden to an EL curriculum that does not seem to be currently meeting educators or students' needs? Okay, thanks. The reported increase of unwanted behaviors, demand on teacher training for the curriculum, and the inconsistency of student attendance due to COVID-19 cases and mandatory quarantine for close exposure certainly impact the fidelity of this curriculum. If we have learned anything from the pandemic in the last almost 3 years now, it is the importance of the social emotional above everything else. We are still living in a health crisis. It is my personal and professional belief that without student and staff foundational social and emotional needs being met, teaching and learning cannot occur. I asked the board and administration to consider the EL curriculum to be optional for the remainder of the year, allowing our teachers to choose if the EL curriculum is helpful to them within their individual classrooms. Please let our Hartford teachers use their professional experience to teach our children. Allow them the time and space to teach and practice those social and emotional skills. In regard to shortening the school day or early release, this is a huge decision that needs much more thought and consideration. And I appreciate you calling the families and teachers here tonight. It can be disruptive and not equitable for all students and their families. First, changing the school day at this point in the school year will be another disruption to our students and their families. As students are ingrained in their consistent routines, which are important to the developmental needs of feeling comfort, predictability, and the sense of safety within their learning environments. Shortening the day could make behaviors worse. For students with certain disabilities, changes are extremely difficult and very hard to overcome. Second, what happens to students who have IEPs? How will their needs and services be met as special educators and related service providers, our SLPs, our OTs, our PTs, are already stretched thin within the school day? What does this mean for in-school classroom instruction time and learning in their least restrictive, inclusive environment? What does this mean for students on IEPs meeting their goals and very possibly increasing the amount of students needing extended school year services this summer? Every hour in the classroom counts for children with disabilities. Finally, shortening the school days or early release is inequitable for some Hartford families. Some families have more flexibility in their schedule to support early release or a shortened school day. Some have more funds to support childcare or add academic enrichment activities during this time. Some Hartford families are already hurting and struggling to find someone to watch or pick up their COVID-exposed child from school so they can attend work and not take a day without pay. Every industry seems to be functioning with a skeleton crew, which also adds to parent-guardian stressors. Yes, we have to support our teachers, and we also need to support our students and their families. We need to be cognizant of the academic, social, and emotional and community impact that shortening the school day will have now and in our future. So how can we, as community members, step up to support our teachers' mental health? How can we make sure our students are not losing precious classroom time? Can we leverage ESSER funds into staff wellness support, additional positions, and increasing substitute pay? How can we make this decision an equitable one for our Hartford community? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and Roy, you can prove.
So they're up there, if you want to read them, I'll point to them.
Is there a comment, Peter?
Here's the first comment that has been posted from here, and then we have.
Okay,
several.
yes.
I did have one thing I wanted to say. At looking at some of the emails we have received prior to this meeting, there seemed to be some degree of uncertainty of what was being proposed. I want to make it clear what we're talking about is the possibility of taking 1 hour a week away, i.e. on one day during the week, ending the class day earlier. So it is not an extended every single day that's going to be adjusted, what we have been proposed. So that should be taken into account when we're discussing this. And it wasn't necessarily, from what I saw, clear to some of the people who were being exposed to what the proposal was.
Okay, thank you, Peter. And,
Question from Sarah.
okay, I can't read them.
Roy, I think you're gonna have to read them first.
Okay. Can we use COVID funds to offer better wages to attract the paraprofessionals our kids and teachers need?
I mean, in response to that, I would offer, we're taking in information and no option is off the table. Some may be more practical than others, but we will try to consider everything we can do.
And just in addition, in taking copious notes as to recommendations that are coming from our community, it will be over the next few days, getting in touch with our attorney and the Agency of Education to ensure that some of the recommendations could be brought forward. So that would be another piece to the puzzle.
And I guess informally, I've decided we're going to alternate between Zoom and public. So I'll take the next public comment. And I think it would be best if, because that microphone may pick up better.
When we tried to adjust the camera so it's shining at your face. I hope, let's see.
Once you start speaking.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. I'm totally split everything you just said as a parent. I'm a parent of Hartford students. I'm also a teacher in the Hartford district, and I'd like to speak to that part of this evening's agenda. I feel like I need to say some of my words may sound harsh. I apologize for that. I'm not meaning to sound harsh. I'm meaning to sound honest. I have written my third letter, although this one is being delivered in person to the board and administration regarding some of the issues we've been facing, and the teaching staff is not being heard. Your invitation to this community engagement meeting was misleading and flawed. It starts with the insinuating statement that we, the elementary teachers, are asking the community for their help in solving one of the biggest stressors of our year. It goes on to state that the reason for this reduced school day is to reduce teacher burden by providing additional planning time while also supporting our families as stress-free as possible. You've laid the blame for the need of more planning time at the feet of the teachers, and you put the onus of solving this problem onto our students and their families. The new curriculum is the reason for higher than usual planning requirements. Your teachers have been telling you this for 3 months. We talked about this at the August in-service days. We have had meetings with our curriculum coaches in our buildings. We have talked with our principals. We have talked with the curriculum director at multiple in-service trainings. We have worked harder and longer than we did our first few years of teaching. You letters detailing the problems. The implementation of this highly involved curriculum was decided by administration. The continued use of this highly involved curriculum has been approved by administration. If you want to take the burden off your teachers, take this program off our plates like we've been asking. This curriculum is one of the highest stressors in every elementary school room in Hartford. Your invitation implies that you have already decided upon this early release day, and we are here to discuss options. Please shelve this idea right alongside the curriculum. For so many reasons, this is not a solution. Just a few examples. 1 hour a week is not going to provide any substantial planning time. It typically takes us 1 hour to look at, read, digest, plan, and prep for 1 hour of teaching time with the curriculum. There are 15 hours a week that we are supposed to be teaching this new program. You are talking about taking away an hour of instructional time, time that is at a premium, time that we need our students to be in the classroom. We would have to restructure an entire 20% of our week to accommodate this early release time. Asking families to leave their jobs and losing an hour of pay is not very respectful. They have been in the ditches, so to speak, this entire time of COVID. You're asking them to sacrifice even more time. Who is going to plan for all of these enrichment activities? Programs that already exist are understaffed, underfunded, and in many cases out of financial and/or physical reach for our families. None of us in this room can solve COVID. None of us in this room can solve staff shortages. We can't solve the curriculum stress, but you can. Accept that this was not the year to throw a new curriculum at the elementary teachers and students. Accept that whatever the price of this curriculum, it is not worth the costs to your teachers and students. Accept that the creation of the need for more planning time and the stress of this new program was put upon us by administration. Accept that the solution to this is in your hands, not by creating a situation that works for no one and actually adds stress by listening to your staff and putting this immensely taxing endeavor on the shelf for the rest of the school year. Let us go back to what we know, what we've already made plans and materials for. Let us teach in an environment where our students can learn. Your invitation states that you are looking to reduce teacher burden while keeping students healthy and engaged. You have the solution. Act on it.
Thank you. Another question?
So, this one is similar to the previous one. It seems like staffing is the biggest issue regarding coping with the stressors of COVID. What can the school district do to recruit additional staff to help support the teachers?
I mean, as Coach and Mr. Merrill alluded to, that is a real problem across the board. I know in my business, I'm turning away clients right now because I don't have enough personnel. Yes, we need to be creative, and we will consider options. And as part of the meeting on the 8th, I imagine, I can't speak for the board, but just my personal opinion, that might be something we consider.
Quick question. Tom, could you tell us what our vacancy rate is here for staffing at our school district? Ballpark?
that's a good question. I don't know exactly how many staff or positions are vacant now. I do know we were having a lot of trouble filling those that are vacant. We've done fairly well, but there isn't, there's not a lot of choice. We don't usually have a lot of teacher professional staff vacancies during the year. I think we do have a couple now, and we have a handful of paraprofessional vacancies right now, but I mean, we have no pool to draw from, no subs to pull from. I mean, we're very, very tight. Most days we're asking whoever's in the school to fill in where they can. Teachers are covering for each other. One-on-one paraprofessionals are covering for classes, secretaries, custodians, administrators are filling in holes where they can. So, yeah, we're scraping by, but we definitely have shortage.
So it sounds to me like you're saying the shortage often comes up, not that we're not retaining staff or bringing in the staff that we need, but it's those emergency times when we're all dealing with COVID exposures or people getting the cold or flu and can't be together in a classroom, and there's no excess to step in and help. So the burden is being borne by those who are present. And so there's no extra support on those days. Is that? Okay.
We last year, at the start of the pandemic, we hired we created 2 permanent substitutes per building. Last year it worked really well. We didn't have the shortage of staff that we have this year. And we were able to fill those and it worked really nicely because they were permanent staff at each building. This year, we had a really hard time filling those positions. And so, we can't depend on them. In fact, if we did hire permanent subs this year, we ended up placing them in permanent roles outside of their permanent sub. So it ended up, filling the holes that we did have. I can get you the number I'm looking at.
Right.
Yeah. Right now, so hopefully.
So-
Get that.
So what I would suggest in response to Hava's question, so that we have that information available for our next meeting, that if we could have those staffing conditions in the board packet for the next meeting, that would be great.
Any other board comment? Because I know you've been very patient.
Hi, my name is Christina Tardi. I'm a parent of a child in elementary school, and I feel like the teachers are not heard. There was a letter from Nicole Villot, HEA president, and I feel like the teachers know what's going on and they even have solutions. And at this point, my question is, they're saying the new ELA curriculum, they're having problems with it, to cut it short. So as of today, is that still going on, or can that be stopped? Or can that be, they're saying, can you trust the teachers? They can make the best decisions. That's the first question about the new ELA. They're saying the lack of substitute coupled with strict COVID protocol creates the system where they don't have enough stuff. So can you look over the COVID protocol and relax it a little bit? The students' behaviors. I mean, it feels like it's great. Like, I'm appreciating this opportunity to be here for real. And I have one there with IPE, and I'm really thankful for the special education that I received here for him. And it sounds like there's behaviors, aggressive, like I feel like that's not gonna be covered if you let kids go out 1 hour, like what we're doing about those student behaviors. Are they being referred to special education? Like if you have a teacher and I can only imagine, because I'm sorry if I took a spot for a teacher that was gonna talk, but if you have a teacher and his behavior needs to be addressed, like you're not gonna have time to see what other kids are doing. So maybe that's why like maybe, I'm imagining here now, I don't know. Maybe one sees, one hits the teacher is trying to address that, the other kids are, I don't know what the other kids are doing, but I can only say that if it's a lot of behavior and aggressiveness within the kids, the teachers need support, like you need more manpower there. And I'm thankful that in my class, we get an occupational therapist from time to time or whatever, like we're getting more help. But what are these teachers that are seeing aggressive behavior? What do they have for support? I don't know. So, and then there's talk about, are you gonna renegotiate sick time and compensation, which I don't think, I'm not here to talk about like in public what you're doing with the teachers, but are you gonna rethink that? I don't know. It sounds like they're thinking maybe you should renegotiate and compensate something. I don't know. Are you gonna review the teachers' compensations and renegotiate the COVID days and make a financial commitment to hire general education, para educators? And in that, I just want to ask, like, what exactly are you doing right now? Do you have newspaper ads all over the place? The school needs help? Like, I don't know, like, what exactly are you doing right now to town of Hartford? Hartford School District needs help. This is what we need. I don't know. I'm just asking. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, maybe, Tom, it would be appropriate to address the last question about what we're trying to do right now.
If, right now, the positions that are open, and then I'll talk about what we do to try to fill them. Positions that are open in the district is the human resources specialist, which is due to a retirement. That's not coming until April. We have a permanent sub opening that we haven't been able to fill at Dothan Brook School, permanent sub at the White River School, mental health clinician, special educator at the Ottaquiche School. What we've been doing is we generally run the professional positions on the school teacher sort of website. It's an educator website called School Spring. That's where we seem to get our most action for filling teacher professional positions. The paraprofessional positions we run in the Valley News, and we do not get a lot of applicants. So a lot of that is word of mouth, and we've done fairly well, but we have run dry. I mean, we're not getting the applicants that we usually have received. So that's where we're at with staffing. Again, we've done well, but we've drawn our well or our pool dry. We don't have anywhere else to pull from. It's very much a friend of a friend of a friend, and people get referred, and we're able to hire really great people, but we have no place else to draw from. As you can tell, going up and down Route 5, it's like every single business has a sign, help wanted, pretty high hourly rates, and sign-on bonuses. So that's where we're at. If somebody has another idea of where to run ads, we will occasionally use Indeed, which is fairly productive, but we get a lot of stuff that's not appropriate, not applicable. So somebody's nodding their head. We get a lot of stuff that's not good, not here, but we'll use any site that we can to get good qualified people.
Thank you, Tom. Next Zoom question?
Next question was the mandate of the vaccine a contributor to the staff shortages?
The mandate of the vaccine resulted in about 3 staff refusing to get the vaccine. So that really hasn't impacted us yet. I'm assuming it will, but it hasn't been significant. I felt like on behalf of the board, or at least myself, it's been really helpful. I mean, the people who are not vaccinated are about 6 times more apt to bring COVID into our schools or bring COVID into our community. So we're doing what we can to keep kids safe. It's nothing any of us like doing or that I like doing, mandating something like that, but my job is all about keeping all of you, safe, most importantly, the children, staff, and therefore our community. So supported it and implemented it wholeheartedly and did what I could to keep you all safe. We did very well, I think, with it. 437 staff. 3 is not horrendous. In a pandemic and the shortage we have, yes, but you have to weigh that up against keeping everyone safe.
Board comment, next public comment, question?
I feel like I asked about the new ELA and you didn't necessarily answer, like, is that stop effectivity? Are we not stressing teachers anymore?
With ELA, what we've done, we've taken several steps to alleviate the stress that the teachers have talked about. We thought that was gonna make the stress or make the burden lightened. We're hearing that it's still stressful from some of the teachers tonight, so we got to relook at that. It's a little different in each school, I think. And I don't want to argue about it. I'm all ears. I want to listen. I'm not implementing it. I support it. I think it was a good program in a pandemic. Yes, it's very hard. I understand any of the curriculums we looked at were really difficult to implement. So we need to reconsider what we're doing with that. And I'm all ears and listening to what all the folks are saying tonight.
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Dustin Lackey. I'm a parent of two kids at Dothan Brick School. Mostly, I'm just curious because I don't have any information about, you guys are talking about the new curriculum. And I'm just curious if there's like a brief summary if somebody could talk about. It sounds like maybe there was an old way of doing the teaching and you guys went to a new curriculum this year. Is it feasible and possible to kind of go back to the way it was if that decision was made? And like what was changed exactly?
Well, for years, we've wanted a curriculum that was, consistent and clear and structured across all the 3 elementary schools. It's kind of in a district like ours, where we have 3 elementary schools, all preparing students for 1 middle school, for 1 high school. Always a desire to have something that's consistent. So we've been looking for a curriculum in language arts that's really strong, really helpful with skill development, and we chose this one, but it is labor intensive. It's very involved on the part of the teachers and the administrators to implement. We really thought it was a good one, a very strong one for us to use. But again, in a pandemic, kind of all deals are off, all rules are off, and it's going to be very stressful to implement, given everything else teachers are doing. I mean, it's very stressful to have 15, 20 students that you need to keep distance, keep masks up, keep from touching each other. And on top of that, this year, you're dealing with inconsistency in who's in class and who's not, who's quarantined, who's home or absent for whatever reason. We have a lot of students who haven't had consistent schooling for several years, so their behavior might not be what you would expect it to be for kindergarten or first grade, second grade, or any grade, really. There's just been so much inconsistency. So we could go back to what we were doing and hold the course. We did decide that with the EL that we would just stop and sort of pause, PAUSE, what we were doing and not have any, real forward movement or any new development with that, and just kind of continue doing what we were doing. But perhaps again, that's not enough, and we need to reconsider it and regroup. So that's really how we landed where we are. I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yeah.
Kathy Newton is the elementary director of curriculum, so.
After partly, teachers came and we did an audit about, you know, what each school was doing and what teachers wanted. And there were concerns across the district that teachers wanted consistency and coherence in their curriculum. And so this was all of the boxes that we collectively identified as wanting to aspire to. As Tom said, it's been a very difficult year to anything new, and we decided to treat this year as more of a exploratory year. There isn't an expectation of what you need to accomplish in the curriculum, and that we would treat this year as a learning year and an exploratory year so that teachers could become familiar at their own pace and by building. So instead of rolling out a district-wide implementation, we pulled back and allowed each individual school tailor their professional development and their learning of the curriculum to best meet the needs of the teachers in each school, because they're all in a little bit different places. And to sort of allow for that and give more teacher voice to them, and to have the administrator and their team and their leadership teams work together to sort of the rest of the year, and then extend the implementation instead of a year-long implementation, do it like 3 years, so that at the end of 3 years, you would see full implementation. But to really take pause in moments in time to sort of adjust as we go along based on the needs of the teacher. Hopefully that helps answer your question.
Okay, Roy?
Next one's a comment. Also, who wants to work as a teacher right now? The stress is high, people are unreasonable, and they are extremely underpaid.
Anybody? Yes, ma'am.
Hi there. I'm a parent to 2 kiddos at White River School. I feel like the letters that I read in the Google Drive versus what Ms. Newton just described are 2 very different pictures to me. So I just feel like I'm not getting a clear picture of what's going on. Ms. Trombley wrote a very detailed letter. My stepdaughter has Ms. Trombley as a teacher, so I am seeing the work the classroom when we're home working on things. She talked all about all sorts of different phonetic and what have you, and it's very clear she does not support this programming. I'm wondering how many people were on the committee that chose this curriculum, and if the HEA had a member on the committee when exploring what program to use.
I don't know the number, but I know that an advisory committee and representatives from all 3 elementary schools, and anyone who wanted to could be on.
We'll go with the public, because it was a determined walk there, so.
So my name is Nicole Velu, and I am the HEA president. I was not a member of the, can't remember what we called it, the curriculum exploratory committee. I, as the president, have heard from every person on that committee, including my really close coworker, who is like the reading teacher guru, the person who I have learned how to go over into the land of reading teacher from math teacher. And I have turned myself into a word nerd now, and I love it. The premise behind EL education is a good one. It's the science of reading. It's how kids learn to read. So a lot of kids just pick up the skills naturally, but there's the smaller portion of kids who need to be explicitly taught the patterns and the sounds in our language. And everyone can benefit from that type of instruction. And it makes everybody a better decoder and a person who is able to read the words. And then as they learn to decode, then they can learn to comprehend and actually read, learn versus learn to read. So that point I'm not arguing. The science behind EL education is fantastic. The delivery of education is not good. It is a very difficult curriculum to follow. It's a lot of boxes and a lot of manuals, and it's not all in one place. And it's almost impossible to sit down and get a clear picture of what you're supposed to do during a lesson. The committee that was formed absolutely did not choose this program. This was a choice that was not made by that committee. It was made by administration. A member of the committee actually said, I feel like we are just here to rubber stamp something that's already been chosen, and that was correct. So I'm afraid now that the teachers are so upset about EL education. They're so upset about saying this since August that we have killed any chance for EL education to move forward. And I'm worried about that. I actually said that to my principal, Rick, today. I said, I'm worried about it because if we had had someone, one of our amazing resources in this district, share the information and have it be a collaborative effort, we may have reached that same conclusion of we want EL, but that's not what happened. And teachers really felt, and we voiced our concerns, this is not the time to do it. And we didn't feel, a lot of people didn't feel listened to. So I was actually a part of the meeting with Tom where we came up with the idea of early release. And like we're always talking about, there's always better ideas that we don't come up with. And someone presented me an idea the other day that was, we'll keep kids in school, provide teachers with release time while the kids are in school. So get 2 substitutes for each building, give them 3 uninterrupted hours a couple of weeks to help with that planning time. And this, I just want to be clear, this is not an issue that's going to go away this year. It's not going to go away with EL. It's an elementary thing. Like we have 6 subjects to teach versus 1. And less time because our kids require monitoring all the time. I mean, they're little and we have to make sure they're safe. And we know that, but with new initiatives and new things, it's just always a lot. I do want to say, I think there's some misinformation about substitutes and working as a paraprofessional. You just have to be a high school graduate with, no record. You have to pass the fingerprint test. We have a wonderful 18-year-old who graduated from high school last year, who is now a substitute. I mean, we never put her in charge of a classroom, but she's helping with kids and she fills in those roles where there are adults, who are present. But she's fantastic and she helps fill in those gaps for us. So if you have any 18-year-olds who didn't go to college this year, send them our way. We'd be happy to train you. But I also want to say, this is my 24th year teaching. It's my 15th here in Hartford. I went to Hartford and my goal as the HEA president is to make Hartford a place where people want to come and people want to stay. And I love our kids and I love our community. And I think I've only written 1 letter like that before. And it came from teachers coming into my office and breaking down into tears. It came from a paraprofessional slamming her keys on the secretary's desk and leaving. And it came from, my office is inside the office, and it came from trying to help people every day and to fill in holes where holes needed to be filled. And it just became, we had 11 staff members out one day, we had 12 out the next day. And it's not because we're stressed and calling in sick. We're parents too, and our kids are being put into quarantine. And things happen, like just, it was almost like you couldn't make it up anymore. Like what else could possibly happen? It happened. And we made it work. We made it work safely, but at a cost, so we all gave up something to do that. We do, like Tom said, we do have vacant positions, and that's still hard. And I know I said, let's hire 2 substitutes. That's going to be hard. But it is a way to solve that problem with keeping the teachers here in the district, or keeping the kids here in the district and keeping them at school, which is ultimately where our kids want to be. I have been hugged so much this year. Our kids are just like begging for attention, and they're so glad to be back. And I was talking to some 2nd graders, and I said, hey, you guys are the youngest kids in the building to remember what it's like to not wear a mask at school. And they were shocked. And I was like, what do you think about that? And the kid goes, well, I'm going to get my COVID shot. That means I can take my mask off. Not quite, but you're getting there. So I do think something at the elementary school needs to change. I do think EL is a big part of it. Even though EL has it's been the hot button item, I do want to say the science behind it is really good in terms of how we teach reading. The delivery of it is not friendly. And we've been working really hard to try to make it work, but that's also adding to our stress. Like, here's the time, here's your new timeline, here's what you're going to do now. We're going to change it again. We're going to do this. And teachers are they're cooked. We can't take one more. We can take one more change, but I'm not sure what that is at this point. I do just want to say I appreciate our labor management meetings. It sounds like such a terrible term for problem solving. Really, that's what it is. And my goal for that is exactly the same. Get people to come to Hartford, get them to want to work here, and get them to stay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nicole.
All right, Coach. Why don't we take a couple of the Zoom questions, because are they backing up?
170, 182.
Why did I ask?
Yeah, there's 206 people on Zoom right now.
So I'm a Dothan parent, and I want to express my utmost thanks to our school district educators and staff for your tireless effort and dedication to our children. It will last nearly 2 years. It has been constant stress and change, and you have gone above and beyond. Thank you so very much.
Roy, you can go ahead and read a couple more.
Yeah, I'm there. Our family owns a business in the Upper Valley. We are very short-staffed, like and all businesses is. We have 2 kids in the district, and as their mother, I could not leave any sooner from work, as it would also run into our lunch rotation, which could make it in for work earlier much harder on our business. First is shortening the school day. First of all, I would like to ask what is being done to fix the middle school bus issue. Our kids take bus 31 and are constantly 40 minutes late getting picked up. If we are shortening their day further, how much more can our students lose and have hope of keeping up with grade level expectations?
We'll do 2 more and then we'll take public comment.
I understand that teachers are stressed and short-staffed, but what about the healthcare professionals that are the same? The average working parent cannot handle their kids getting out any earlier than they are.
Yeah.
Solution being considered for all schools, or can it vary by elementary, middle, and high? For example, modified hours.
I think that we can respond to that last question.
Yes. Tom?
Actually, that's a good question for the board. I mean, I'm not sure if the board's considering a K-12, pre-K-12 shortening of the day. I mean, really this stemmed from the elementary school's concern about the lack of planning time because they're teaching so many subjects. But in high school, though we're not hearing from them as much, there is still concern there with stress and strain and student behavior and issues of the same sort. So I do think that's something the board and I have to consider before any decisions made.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Next participant.
If I could.
Yes, go ahead, Harbor.
Just a quick comment. I just want to make sure it's clear for everybody that as we take these comments, they're going into the notes for the meeting, as are all of the Zoom comments. So I just want to make sure that you know that you're not just saying something and it's going to fall on our ears tonight and then go away. It will be officially something that we go back and revisit because it's part of our minutes. So we really value these comments, and I encourage you to be open about whatever your questions or concerns are, because that's why we're here tonight.
Absolutely.
Thanks for reiterating that.
I would like to make another comment. I was thinking, it feels like some parents are struggling with like the early release, and it feels like it's only the part where they have to pick the kids up early, but would it be possible to, and this is where I'm confused, what exactly is proposed right now? Like, can the kids go in the gym and jump in the gym 1 hour? I don't know, like, like, can we deal with this in the house and not send the kids out of the house? Because it sounds like other ideas were Vince. Let's talk with the partners and let's see what they can do. But then again, this I think would be a problem of COVID rules. Like, if you don't keep it in the house, then you're opening yourself to other people, and other people, do they follow the same rules as your school? And if they don't, then you're cutting yourself off. I'm maybe, I don't know, that's what I'm thinking. So is it possible to try and find more gym class for the kids, or I don't know, more art, school, music? I don't know, can the extra people that usually teach some class have more classes Fridays? Just, I don't know, something that is online.
Thank you for that question. I think it's okay. I'd like to just jump in on that one. I think what we're doing now is we want to hear what are all the considerations and concerns by families and parents and teachers, so that when we come together and deliberate at our next meeting, we're able to have some really good ideas and solutions to talk about. I don't think anything has been formally proposed at all yet. We want to be able to come up with these really great ideas, something that's not going to be a burden to our families. Does it look like taking ESSER money and somehow being able to support the coverage of childcare? How could we do this? So this is what we need to hear. We need to hear it. And it sounds like it's hard to pick up kids early. It's hard to change a schedule. It's hard to do transportation. These are important things for us to know so that we can come together with some intelligent ideas to talk about together. Right? Is there anything you guys want to add? So,
Yeah.
do you agree? Is
Okay,
that-
well, we'll go with Tom, and then you'll be next.
Yeah, I really enjoy hearing everybody's ideas. Just know, in a school system the size we are, and with all the rules and regulations we have, I have to weigh out what's safe. So although that's a very good idea, we have to figure out who's gonna staff group of kids in the gym or that group of kids outside while the teachers can have their relief time or their planning time. So first of all, we have to figure out if that's safe, because you're mixing all these different groups together. And in a pandemic, we, have the guidance around how we shouldn't do that. But then everyone who's volunteering to help has to go through the criminal records checks and be safe to work with our children. So it's not quite as easy as just saying, well, we have 50 volunteers at X school to do this. It may be, because maybe all those volunteers are already gone through the criminal check, and that would work really well, and we can keep groups separate and go about our business. That's a really good solution. I don't want to sound like I'm resisting it, but know that we have a lot of rules and regulations around who can do what and how we can do that. So it's definitely something that I would propose the board, consider as we look at solutions to this problem.
Just to reiterate, on behalf of the board, everything is on the table. That's why we're here. And that, we will continue to say during the course of this meeting is that everything is on the table. And when I say everything, we also need to keep in mind that safety prevails over everything. So that is part of that decision-making process that the board and the administration will have to go through at that next meeting. So we will be taking very copious notes. As you've seen, every recommendation, is a worthy recommendation. And we will be weighing all of that. And hopefully, because of this, we had 206 people on the call, and then another 20, that's the biggest group of Hartford school community members, we've had together, since forever. So we understand how important this is, and we really, really appreciate, all of the good advice that we're getting. So thank you.
I'll just add one thing. I mean, that's part of the reason we've implemented these community engagement portions of our meetings to get feedback. So please always feel free to come to a meeting and offer a comment. And there you are.
Hello, my name is Sarah. I have one child at Wunderlich Elementary and one child at the middle school now. I don't have any personal experience or knowledge about the curriculum. It may be excellent, it may be terrible, it might be in between. I would say that new curriculum initiatives have been given to teachers and come and gone for decades upon decades. I'm sure this one may be good, may be bad. It's probably not what we'll be using in 20 years. I don't think we need to be really attached or dismissive. I think I can be a good problem solver. I'm sure I could brainstorm, ideas of like, here's an enrichment thing that'll keep the kids in school. But I don't think I should be the first resource. And I'm not trying to squash public comment. I think that's great. But I am definitely not the expert as to what is particularly stressing teachers or and what the best course of action would be. So, well, I think it's great if people offer their perspectives, and I think if people have good ideas, that's fine. But I don't think that the most effective way is to be coming to myself or other community members and say, okay, let's help the teachers. I think we should listen primarily to the teachers as the number one experts of what is going to help this year go smoothly, what is going to help. Because even as a parent to the kids, myself and all the administration and the board, we're all one step removed. And I think our primary source of what we need to do to fix this should come from the teachers as a group or as best can be, before we just hand another thing to them. What's going to fix them, or not them, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
The situation.
So, we want any suggestions because quite frankly, we're looking for ways to deal with the problem. But the reason I had suggested we do this kind of community meeting actually wasn't so much for suggestions on how we deal with the teachers' issues, though we care about them. I actually wanted to know what the impact of the proposed solution would be on the families. So part of the reason you are hopefully here is to provide us with that insight, because I was very much aware that there are lots of single parents out there who have jobs that don't have the ability to take off, that do not get an easy choice between not having food on the table because you didn't work the hours to get the money to make your paycheck stretch far enough through the week, or leave the kid in school, or what the choices were. So I really wanted us to have a chance to hear not only about how we address the stress that teachers are feeling, but the other side of that mirror is, what are the stresses that are addressing our community? And so that's part of why I suggested we have this particular meeting. So, thank you. But there's also other kind of feedback we can give.
Thank you, Peter. We'll get to you right after some Zoom comments, okay? So why don't you do 4, Roy?
Okay, won't a shortened day compound the problem of family instability and stress, and therefore behavioral problems, and therefore add to teacher stress? Consider to apply all schools equally. Those with a variety of ages struggle with 2 conflicting schedules last year. Are there options for parents to help out in some way, volunteer hours?
Yeah, can that be answered? Yeah, let's answer that. Is there a way for parents to help out?
Yeah, absolutely.
What can they do?
Well, if we wanted to, try to facilitate some sort of activities during the school day that parents could chaperone, support, manage, we could do that. We'd have to have people fill out volunteer forms, do the criminal
Right.
record check. That absolutely would work. We've done some of that already in certain places. We have a lot of volunteers.
And what if parents actually have availability in their schedule for 1 or 2 days a week where they could come and substitute? How would they sign up for that?
Through my office or at the school, they could get an application and sign up. Absolutely. We could use that. That would be huge even before the board makes any decision. If parents
Exactly.
have to sub or to volunteer in the school, call me, come into my office, come into the school office and ask for an application or a volunteer application, and we'll get you signed up.
Yep.
Just did a big criminal record check last night. The Ottaquiche School had a bunch of parents who were volunteers, and instead of doing them individually, we just police station and get every fingerprints done and get them signed up. So yeah, we do a lot of that.
Just to make it clear, that's not picking on parents or anything else. I had to do the same thing to serve on the school board.
We all do. Anybody who works with any of our children has to be fingerprinted.
Right.
Unless we can guarantee they're not going to be alone, then we do a background check, but not the fingerprinting.
Exactly. So there are clear procedures, Hava, and process, and I'm glad you raised that question because it does make people aware. At one point at White River Elementary School, we had 104 reading volunteers, as Tom would recall. And so think about it, that's half of the people that are on Zoom today were that number were volunteering at White River Elementary during the reading program that they were doing at one point.
Coach, I would just like to say I'm very proud that I was one of those. It was one of my favorite volunteer jobs I've ever done.
Cool. See, it works. Thanks, Hava.
We have a framework of topics and discussion. It feels really open-ended right now. It would be helpful to know what the school is thinking about upfront.
I think I would respond to that is, maybe that would be, I'm not gonna say ideal, because we're better when we all work together type thing. And we, as school board members, need help because we're not necessarily educational experts type thing. And we will get to that point on the 8th when we go through all these great ideas, figure out what can be implemented, what timeframes they are. Like the volunteer idea is great, but we'll have to start. We need to format it. It needs to be structured so that for the volunteer as well, they know these are the dates, they can schedule it. Here's what they're going to be doing, because there may be certain things people are comfortable or uncomfortable doing. So I think we're in that process type thing. I'd answer there. And I guess one other thing I'll say personally, at one point in my life.
Okay, I'll be there in a minute.
single parent.
Can you guys be quiet, please, for a minute?
Can those on Zoom please mute your microphone?
That's okay.
Thank you.
And I guess I'll finish up my thought. And I had students in 3 different schools. So I understand the coordination problem and it exists. It existed pre-COVID.
Yeah.
So COVID has only made it worse.
Mhm. Right.
So now,
My name is Amy Wunderlich. I have 2 kids in the Dothan School. And my primary reason for coming tonight was just to support the teachers. It's a tough job, as it's been mentioned. None of us in this, I guess a few of you are teachers, but the majority of us in this room are not scrambling to go get a degree, to take a job that does not pay well, wrangling other people's children. So thank you guys for everything that you're doing, and you guys have my support. I don't know when school transitioned from a place of education to a place of childcare, but it has happened. And what I'm hearing is primarily parents concerned about picking up early, transporting their kids, who's going to watch their kids, what it does to their schedule. I'm not hearing any concerns from parents about losing this better curriculum that's been introduced. It doesn't seem like the primary concern from parents, myself included, is if they're getting a slightly better education than they were before introducing the new curriculum. That being said, I think we should trust the teachers. I don't know what all they've asked for support. It does sound like their biggest complaint is this new curriculum. And I think that's a pretty easy give to just say, all right, COVID is over, once we clear this hurdle, then we'll deal with that. But, as Sarah said, this is not going to be the be all end all of curriculum. It may be a step down to go back to what we were doing. But if it's going to alleviate that much stress on our teachers, and we're asking them to do so much. School now is picking up your child at your doorstep, taking them to be supervised and educated and socialized and fed, and then brought right back home to you at the end of the day. It doesn't pay that well. And we're asking more and more and more of teachers. And I think if that's all they're asking in return, it's not a big ask. And I think we should trust them. I too am a single parent. I think it was mentioned actually on this side. I have 2 elementary schoolers. I know that it's hard, when they're home early and half days and no school. That was a very difficult time. I think our community could come together. We're asking the schools to be a public community to help us raise our children. That's not really what it's there for. It's for education. And I think that if the problem sounds like childcare, not education. So I think we need to let the educators make decisions about what they're capable of doing. And if there's going to be gaps, I think even if it's not organizing a parent to come in and supervise at the school for after school care or during the day, it could be as easy as, I can't take off every day to pick up my kids early from school, but I can do half the week and my neighbors can do half the week, and I'll pick up their kids on Monday and Wednesday, I'll do mine on Tuesday and Thursdays. I think we could come together that way as well. So, but I really just want to say thank you to everybody that's doing your best. I know it's been hard, and I know our kids are not always a pleasure around, so thank you.
thank you.
So there'll be some overlap, Russ, but I don't want to ignore a comment even.
That's fine.
Fair enough. How can parents help? We want to help. Are able to leverage parents that are fully vaccinated and willing to help in schools in any way they need it. Playground attendance, lunchroom help, math groups. We all want to help in any way we can to alleviate the teacher stress and the burden on them. How did the EL curriculum get approved without an advisory board? Does the district have the authority to mandate vaccines for 5 in order to attend in person?
Not yet. Not, yeah, the state is considering it. It's going through some sort of vaccination approval protocol, but they do hope to add it to the list of mandatory vaccinations. But that process, I guess, takes a little bit of time, just like, measles, mumps, and rubella and all the other vaccinations. They would like to add it to that, but it's still in the process of review.
Looking for clarification, are the struggles we've heard about in the elementary schools shared by HMS and HS? Would a schedule change apply to all schools?
We've covered that one, yeah.
Right.
Anybody in the public? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Heather Obar. I'm a physical therapist here in the district. I also have 3 kids, 2 at DBS and 1 at the middle school. And I've heard from multiple people throughout the district, and I've witnessed it myself, how the behaviors are hard in the school districts. Nicole alluded to it in her letter, but I've also heard educators, professional staff, paraeducators say that those behaviors are because the kids haven't been in school. They were either remote, they were hybrid, or they had an early dismissal. So I'm concerned that if we decrease the instructional time and let these kids out early, the solution to the problem is also contributing to the problem. And then we end up in a cycle, and how do we break that? And I wanted to speak to some solutions. I know the board in your invitation said that maybe we could offer more after-school programming. The DBS tried that back in October. There was a bike club and Growing Change came after school. They were both 2 days a week. And then the COVID cases increased and a bunch of kids were put into quarantine. And there was concern about crossing the kids in the different classes. And so those programs were stopped. So as somebody who works and is relying on, I know it's considered childcare, but a sudden change is hard. It takes a couple weeks to coordinate care after school, and then to have those shut down is hard. And so if we're looking at a solution that is bringing in nonprofits to help with after school care, and we're also trying to mitigate COVID, I'm optimistic it's going to change now that our kids can be vaccinated, but trying to also be realistic, that's hard for families if we find out the day before that the programs aren't going to run because there's a lot of COVID cases. So I don't know if it would be possible. We're given a ton of money from the federal government. It's earmarked. I don't know if it's here, but if maybe those nonprofits, Growing Change, VINS, Montshire could come into the school and do lessons. And then while they're in the school doing lessons, it alleviates some of the burden on the teachers so that they can have more planning time, prep time, whatever they sort of need. And then in terms of kind of staff, recruiting staff, I know wages are hard. I know there isn't anybody out there, but kind of thinking outside the box, could we offer some sort of childcare or after school program that is preferential to employees so that maybe you'll attract more people? Could we look towards partnering with UVAC and or CCDA or some other gym and offering free gym memberships as a perk of working here? And then, you know, it helps everybody's well-being. I had one more, but I forgot it. And if it comes back to me, I'll come back.
Thank you. Oh, Nancy, yes, sorry.
For just a few minutes. For the ones of you that don't know, I have been in the early childhood education field for the past 20 plus years right here in White River. And for some of the suggestions that you said, I think they would be great for our kids. But the only problem is For the ones of you that have children in childcare right now, you already know, we don't have the staff either. My daycare had to go half staff. That meant that was half of the kids that could not come back into our daycare when COVID allowed us to open back up. The early childhood education field, daycares, have the same problem that we're having here in our school system. We can't find the care. We can't find the personnel to bring in. So when we're going to be looking at this, and I've said this to our board before, that we will have to be considering some of those things because we can't find the staff to do it either. We've had the largest daycare center in our area shutting down because they can't get staff to be in, and they had over 100 kids there. So it's not just the schools, but it is also the early education field, the people that you could normally pull in to do those great after-school programs. So that will be part of our discussion when we're talking about doing some of those kinds of things. Where are we going to get the qualified people? And the state requires for after-school programs, the state also requires certain qualifications for you to be able to work those programs too. And one other thought while I've got everybody's attention is that unless I am completely wrong, I do not think the teachers asked for that time, that extra hour to be off. I have talked to a number of teachers when all of this came up, and every single one of them has said to me, "An hour? Are you kidding me?" I went to a PTO meeting at one of the elementary schools the other night, and I just sat there, didn't say a word except to introduce myself. I was just there to hear what was going on. One of the people there is a teacher, and said, let me just tell you an example. I worked after school till 6:30 that night. I can't remember the exact times, but these are approximate. I worked till 6:30 after school was let out to work on one lesson plan. I went home, ate my dinner, and worked till 10:30 that night on the same lesson plan. I got up the next morning and I was at school at 6 a.m. and I was still working on the same lesson plan. And when the kids got there, I still didn't have it complete. So that's some of the things that's happening with our teachers. And as this teacher was very eloquently said, 1 hour, are you kidding me? And she says, and then the onus is put on us that it's our teacher's fault that we're closing down for an extra hour, and the parents are put in a position of trying to get their children taken care of. These are the kind of comments that I'm hearing a lot of. So I want you guys to be aware that when I said earlier in this meeting, we need to hear from you. We need to hear what you're saying. Just as Hava said, we have to be able to make an educated decision, and we can't make that educated decision if we don't hear from all of you to let us know what's going on in your life when you hear things that are said. Again, I encourage you, please, for the ones that are online, for the ones that are out here, still out here in the seats, please speak up so that we can make an educated, best for you, for our kids decision when we make that decision. Thank you.
I just want to say, make sure that there's nothing I said that the teachers needed that time.
Right.
That what I was trying to do to support the teachers with the early release is allow them time to think, to work together, to plan together, to do their planning when the children didn't have needs. So we're trying to think of a time when they can do that sort of free and clear of mind so that they can get the work done. Right now, what's happening on teachers' planning periods is they're being asked to cover for so-and-so who's absent, cover for this one who's quarantining, cover for someone else who is dealing with a child with a behavior need, cover for someone who's at an IEP meeting or in some other parent meeting. That's why we wanted a time when the children weren't in the building, that the teachers could do their planning work and do their preparation. This whole meeting was planned around trying to support our teachers who are working so hard. Okay? And we got to a point, we have tried to alleviate the stress. I've listened every step of the way with EL curriculum. We are now at a point where we either need to say, you know, this isn't gonna work, we can't just hold and hold the course for the rest of the year. We need to not abandon ship, but say we're stopping. We are stopping until we get out of COVID, until we get out of this pandemic. And what we do when we get out, what curriculum we'll use when we finish, is something that we have to grapple with. We are at a point where the decisions are over my head, where there's nothing else to do but either release the kids or come up with some of the things that you've all discussed tonight. Okay, the things that affect not just the teachers, the students in their day, the parents in their work schedules. These are big issues. That's why we got to a point where I needed to involve the school board. The school board needs to hear from not only the teachers, but from the community, and work out some solutions. I think people are coming up with some really great ideas, and there's a lot of possible solutions. There are problems with some, but they're things that we've already heard some solutions to. You know, maybe volunteers can come in and work in individual classrooms to alleviate that classroom, that teacher, or to relieve that teacher. And then we're not getting into spreading COVID or mixing pods or mixing classrooms and having trouble with the spread of COVID. So there's a lot of things that are already coming up that are really good. So I'm really happy.
Yes, Nancy.
And I think there's been a lot of misunderstanding and misinformation that has gone out. What someone might have said to you may be completely misconstrued or just misunderstood, and things that have come back to us, the same thing. Some of that has been what we thought was very clear as a board was not very clear, evidently. I think that that's caused some misunderstandings and some feelings, and I think that we need to remember that we are all working for the best, for what's best for our children. And that's why we, the board, would like for this to be a very coherent thing, so that we are like this, not like this. We don't want to be a we and them. We want to be a team.
Well, I think the board knows and the community needs to know that we've done really well. Our staff and our administrators and our kids and the families, we've done very well. When I talk to my colleagues and my counterparts across the state, by far, we've done better. And I hate to compare, but once in a while, we need to feel good. I do that. And I say, we haven't had school closures. I have counterparts that have had multiple closures of schools, and those are days that they need to make up or get waived. We haven't done that. So I feel pretty good about that. We have a nearly full staff. Do we have shortages? Yes. Do we have very shallow pools that we can draw for substitutes? Yes. But there are schools with 30, 40 vacancies. Last week I talked to someone up north. They had 130 kids quarantined in one school. So, you know, it's bad everywhere. It's bad across the state. It's bad across New England. It's bad across the country. And it's all of these same issues. We're trying to deal with them in a very proactive way. What can we alleviate from the teacher's place? What can we do to support our teachers? Because without our teachers, we're nothing. Okay, schools operate because of the teachers. They're the mainstay, they're the go-to, they're what makes the whole thing work. We all know that, and if we don't, we should. That's what it's all about. So what can we do to help them be, you know, the best teacher they can possibly be in the classroom every single day? And that's what I'm all about, and I hope that's what this meeting is all about. And I think we're getting there. I think we've got a lot of good ideas, and I'll be pushing the board to make a decision on the 8th with what to do and how to go forward.
So we'll do 5 Zooms.
Well, we have 315, Russ.
Well, we're not gonna, okay,
I'm not gonna talk anymore.
we're not gonna get through all of them. One of the things,
That's, as long as the public knows that ahead of schedule.
but, correct me if I'm wrong, the Zoom format will allow us to review those questions at some point. They're not lost, correct?
Right. We can save the chat. We can save the chat. That I know technically.
Can we at least scan through the questions to see if there's anything we haven't addressed, or is that not appropriate?
How do you want to do it?
How do you want to?
I think we could scan through the questions, but making it very clear, we will do a more detailed scan of the questions after the meeting.
Just in case it's something we haven't touched
Yes.
on.
Yeah.
Right, right.
Raise your hand.
Can I just recommend that you go to the end of the chat and see what the updated questions are? Because then they will feel more connected to what has been currently, rather than look at the old questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Maggie.
You're welcome.
And there's somebody else in the back that would,
Oh, yes.
sorry.
As Bob Barker would say, come on down. Oh, guess we didn't have a question. Yeah.
I wasn't sure if you saw my. I don't usually do this. I've taught in the district a very long time, and my name is Ann Sarasoli. Some of you might have had me, or some of you might know me. As I've said to people, this has been the hardest year as an elementary school teacher. When we shut down in March of 2019, I cried. I thought, I had 22 students. How am I ever going to keep track of all 22 students? I tried my best. I thought outside the box. I did bedtime stories. So if I had one kid, I would offer a story, or I'd sit and chat with them. It was a hard time for everybody. Families, teachers, I mean, we were at our wits' end. Last year, when we returned to school, teachers were ecstatic to be back in the classrooms. The day I walked in, I was like, yes. The main priority last year was to keep them safe and talk with them, keep them socializing within our classroom. Academics were not a priority for us. I, though, at the end of the year, felt very good about sending my kindergarten students to first grade. They had solid skills, and I felt good about still socializing them. We had to keep a distance. They were socializing in our classroom. This year, I feel like we've gone back to a full day. The academics have been shoved onto us with our new program. And I feel that's where our behaviors are rising. We've all got behaviors, but we don't have time to socialize. I barely had to do a morning meeting check-in with my children, and that's wrong. They don't have playtime when we were expected 3 hours a day to be doing the program. It's wrong. We were supported at White River by our principal, and he has been giving us one day to plan. My partner and I, we are diligent, and we looked at 4 lessons in one day, to give you an example. And you try to keep ahead of it, and that's only doing one part of the program right now. And I just think we want our kids in our classrooms. We really do. We're passionate about our kids. That's why we do this. And I think we need to go back and look and do more of those social things. I really do. We need that. Take time to talk. That's how they're going to learn how to interact with one another. Role play. They can't get close to each other because it's still aren't vaccinated. But this has been the hardest year of my career. I'm going to say it. And I've said it to people, and some of the people in this room. you're gonna lose a lot of teachers because it's getting harder and harder. And I've done many curriculum rollouts over my career, but this has been the hardest year. We need to look at that, and you need to listen to your teachers. And I know it's hard for parents. I don't want to burden you, and I know last year was hard for you. But we just need to try to relax. They will get there academically. But we do need to worry about those social skills. So, thank you.
Thank you. Roy, do you have any questions on tap?
There's a lot of questions around the district possibly creating a needs list that we shared weekly with the community, so that we could reach out. Some of the folks, one of the principals, Doug at White River, mentioned that there are some things that people can help out. And one of the parents says if the type of volunteering can be done on Saturday morning, they'd be happy to help, cutting things out, stapling, whatever. But as a parent that can't miss work, that provides opportunities for them as well.
I'd just like to make a comment. And this is also budget season for us. And maybe one of the things we as a board, along with administration, should consider is a volunteer coordinator. Because part of the problem is the principals are already, and the staff and the teachers do a great job. You were going to say something, Coach?
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. When you think about the size of our district and the number of kids and families that we're responsible for, and we've got 7 buildings, we've got 437 staff members, trying to have those folks that are already overburdened, as we've heard and seen tonight especially, it begs, to give some serious thought. And as also has been identified, there are special funds that are available that could put us in a position to alleviate that situation fairly readily, if we could find the right person, to help us with that. So, Russ, you're right on target, my friend.
Well, you always look at any other people. Oh, yes, Peter.
I'm a little concerned that some of the language in the letters that we received and sort of comments is implying somehow that there is fault or somebody is causing this situation, or it's resulting from some group not holding up their part of the bargain socially or whatever. This isn't about fault. It isn't about that. This is about coming together to try to find a solution for a problem that is affecting not just our city, our town, not just our state, our country, but the entire world that we all are part of. We all are suffering from, whether it's the stress of having loved ones die or family members that you can't see because there are restrictions on travel or immune issues in the family or any of a number of other things. We're all facing this, and where we feel alone and that we are unique in being persecuted by an unfair, unloving life that is somehow persecuting us. Actually, we're all going through this together. We're all suffering the same kinds of trials and the same kinds of tribulations. By having this conversation, we're helping each other. This really isn't about fault. This is about what we collectively can do to help each other. And we're fortunate that we live in a part of the world which really hasn't yet forgotten that we are a society, a collective of people. We have rightfully the ability to be proud of the high vaccination rates in this state, the high degree of mask wearing, the caring for each other. Based on that, by the way, if you can, please get your children vaccinated. The way the COVID is affecting our population, according to the story I read this morning, more and more of the people getting our children, it used to be that it was very much a disease only of the elderly. That's no longer true. According to the New York Times story I saw, 22% of our population is children 18 or younger. 25% of the people getting sick are now in that age group. We care about your kids. We care about the community. We want to make sure that we collectively get through this as safely as we can be. And it's not going to be easy. We're not going to be happy about what we have to do because it's not easy. But thank you for showing up and participating.
And go ahead, Nancy.
Sorry, I serve on the Vermont Board Association also, and I can guarantee you that the entire state of Vermont is going through this hellacious problem also. But because you are the district that we are concerned about, we live in, we teach in, I'm working the hardest right here with you guys. And the state school board is very aware of what's going on. I discuss it with them all the time and they help to guide me. And the rest of the state is going through this horrible problem too.
Yeah, just so the board knows that I haven't heard this update yet, but we had 3 clinics at the elementary schools, one today at the Ottaquiche School, one yesterday at the Dothan School, one last Tuesday at the White River School for 5 to 12-year-olds. And the majority of the students were ours from Hartford. And I don't know the exact numbers, but we did, I think, over 100 shots in each school. I don't know if anybody here, Amelia, do you know how many shots we did at Ottaquiche today? Around guesstimate? 60.
And probably 4 teachers, and they were able to. Great.
Just an update for the board. I think there were over 100 shots at the White River School. So, thank you.
So they're still coming in pretty fast. So perhaps a district-wide PTO effort would help all the schools. So I think in line with what you were talking about, Russ, in terms of volunteer coordination, each school could lead a fuller team across all schools. This could help train parents, guardians, take a youth PTO role and make it less intimidating, easier to take on. I just don't know who takes this on for an effort. The school board? Question. To encapsulate a bunch of comments, just to be fair, there are several people saying that maintaining school continuity is critical, and if the teachers are stressed about the curriculum, that maybe we should focus on that more than the students losing. To be fair, there's several comments around that, but rather than reading any of the individuals.
You really know that's not easy.
No, more than anything, I just want to stress to the community, I fear that they feel like their voice wasn't heard because they did it remotely. So I just, that the board assures that they will get read and that their voice won't be lost.
And anybody who feels like they weren't heard, just email me or communicate with me, call, and I'll make sure it gets to the board.
See, one of the things about this particular community engagement activity is our hope as the board was to use the same process that we use during our retreats, where we actually gather as much information as possible and then try to sort and categorize so that, as Nancy said earlier, as Peter has said, as Hava and Russ have all said, give us enough information that we can make a credible decision on behalf of you, our community. We're willing to do that work, and that's what we do. And I'm really proud of our district. We heard from our union president, and we heard from one of our senior teachers how special a place Hartford is. And we want to maintain that status. And that is most important, I think, to all of us, and so your safety, stability are all part of our decision-making process, as we move forward, because we are in a very, very special place. The fact that we could have this meeting and have, at one point we had 206 people on Zoom. I looked up and I went, what? That's amazing. So to be able to have that many community members together, thinking in concert together, that we can come up with a solution or a set of solutions that will help us to get through this is amazing. So I'm really, again, thankful and grateful for our community coming together tonight. Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, please identify yourself.
Hi, Sandra North. I work as a teacher at the high school. And going back to what you were saying about just safety and vaccinations, yes, those are all like great things, but I personally would also appreciate if we revisited the subject of surveillance testing. That has been something that is super anxiety producing for me. And so I've been buying those rapid tests on my own. And so if that was just something that was more widespread and more available, I know myself and some of my colleagues would just greatly appreciate that. Thanks.
Well, thanks for adding that, to the mix, because like we said, everything's on the table. So thank you.
I did hear a couple things came into my text messages, if I can.
Yeah, absolutely, Tom.
One of the principal texted me about some of the staff short, some of the issues. It's not, just want to be clear, it's not just EL. There are a lot of concern of staff shortage, which we already talked about, and staff absences due to COVID-related issues. So we're not just talking about EL curriculum. So we might want to keep that in mind with the board contemplate some sort of solution. And there was some stress around class size too, which is another thing that the board and I have talked about having work session around, because I've struggled with how to manage class sizes and school population at the elementary level for years. I've been here 11 years, and it's always been a struggle how to balance that without upsetting families who purchase homes in certain parts of towns thinking they were sending their students to, or their children to, a certain school. So that's always been a struggle.
Yeah.
And LMC, the labor management group, and I have worked on a couple possible solutions, but we need to hear what the board thinks and what the community thinks. It's a little bit of a struggle, but the positive side of that is that we're seeing increases in enrollment. We're seeing increases in our student body. For years, the board and I were very concerned about student enrollment, declining enrollment. We're actually seeing an increase in enrollment. I think we have 1,847 students this year. That's the highest we've had in the 11 years, I think, since I've been.
Right. Yeah, that's accurate.
problem. It is, there, it does cause some problems. It tends to be imbalanced. So right now, Dothan Brook has a really heavy K1 population, K sizes. And we've done some things, what I could, to alleviate that. We hired another teacher to alleviate some of that size in the afternoon. It's just beginning to maybe work, from what I've heard today. So we added a paraprofessional to that program, the K program at Dothan Brook. I don't know if that's having an effect yet, but we're doing what we can where we can, but we need to do more to systemically address the balance of class sizes across the district. We have some really small ones, and we have some really big ones. So I think some of that.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I was just wondering if there's any chance to pull staff from some of the other elementary schools into the Dothan Brook at high numbers. If you don't move lines because of where people bought houses, can you shift?
There is, and the contract, the teacher's contract does provide that. We haven't used that because it's not going to be very popular with the teacher who has to move, but it is something we've talked about and are considering, because that would probably be one of the easiest solutions. If the school that has the bigger sizes has space to manage the class or the extra teacher, but it is a really viable option.
But it also depends on the math from the sending school. I mean,
Exactly.
you may have a smaller class, but you can't take a teacher out without having the students, and that makes them the problem then.
Right.
So you've got both sides of that equation need to be looked at.
Yeah. And oftentimes, you don't see an influx or a decrease in one class. These trickles, a small, couple kids in this grade, a couple kids in that grade, a couple students in this grade, 3 or 4 in that school. It's not like they all move in second grade. So it's not an easy thing to address, but we have some ideas that we haven't tried yet. And one is fixing staff a little.
So from the comments, parents saying, please don't lose track of the extreme behaviors and how we're working through and supporting the buildings with that. People asking around the time frame for the decision, and it appears that there's a bit of commentary for this. Are you going to need more time than you previously thought before you started this meeting? So I'll let you address that one.
Some things for the board to think of. I mean, I wouldn't support more time because the need is now. The need was yesterday, last week, last month.
Exactly.
So going further away is not going to help. It's going to make things worse. But obviously, you're doing this meeting to be thoughtful and to be, considerate.
Peter.
Right.
I would also this is probably not going to be a one and done. This is going to be an
Exactly.
we make choices, we make changes, see how they play, see what other resources we can get to bring to bear on it, see what happens if we can't actually have parents helping, see how that all plays, and then adjust again. This is not a simple thing. It's not going to be resolved easily. We're just on the first steps of a new journey, and it's going to take that persistence and consistency of attention to this.
And I'll just amplify what has been said. I think really this is like a 70% solution is needed now to address the problem. The superintendent and I have had discussions that we have to address and be creative in the long term regarding retention issues. I know for a fact how expensive it can be to rent an apartment here in the Upper Valley, and especially for a young teacher who may or may not have a significant other. It's a real detriment to try to bring young teachers into the area. So recruiting's been a problem before. It's worse now. And I think we're going to have to get creative on how we fix this problem, recognizing the short term and then the long term. Any?
So,
Oh, we'll do that. I'm sorry, Roy, we'll get to you up there.
just quick. Dustin Lackey again. I've just been thinking, like, if I had a choice, like I have two kids in elementary school, I think that like part of the value of them being in the school is like their time with the other kids. And if I had a choice of you taking an hour away from that or reducing their educational outcomes by some percentage at the end of the year, or like, not having, someone else mentioned like, maybe they're not gonna have the best curriculum, they're gonna have like a lesser curriculum. I would choose them having that time in the classroom with the other kids. So that's from my perspective. My kids also use the after-school program, the creative kids. So I have a feeling like one choice would be like, is there a way to staff them up more to handle the extra work? But I'm sure that there's no staff to hire. So, that's why it's like what we have is teachers. And if the teachers can be taking care of the kids, but then we have less that the kids learn at the end of the year, but at least they were with the teacher and they were with other kids. That's the choice I'd make if it was up to me. So I say that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our middle schoolers have been sitting here listening to this meeting and want to know why the older students aren't being engaged in these conversations, since this is their school community and their education also. There was a lot, the concept of a volunteer coordinator picked up a lot of steam in the chat bar. There is one person that wanted to just also caution, as someone who spent my career working for nonprofits, I want to offer that the volunteer coordinator position is often a difficult one to see true results on. I also would like to bring up the fact that these kinds of gaps are being felt across the board right now, not just in schools. Everyone's having to make major accommodations, which makes making volunteering and finding volunteers harder than ever. I appreciate the out-of-the-box thinking in regards of finding solutions, but COVID has just compounded the lack of human resources. A few people wanted to applaud the community for really rising up and putting so many comments for us to respond to. Like Coach said, there was over 200 people at one point here. And I'll keep scrolling if you want.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wonder if I can respond to one of those.
Okay, yeah, you can respond and then.
Go ahead,
No,
Tom.
come on. I just wonder if, that comment about the older children, if maybe one of the things we could ask before that December 8th meeting is either for principal to work with their staff to come up with sort of a school summary or a school synopsis of how they see the problem in their school and what might remedy it, so that we're not excluding the middle and the high school. I mean, maybe there's some things there that they want to report on though that could be helpful. The same with the elementary schools. I think the issue it is the same, but it's also different in each school. Each school does, and I really support having a little bit of a different flavor in each school, and I want to kind of make sure that we've heard a lot of people who couldn't come tonight too. So I don't know.
Yes, we promised. Okay, go ahead.
I'm Olivia Merrill. I am the student representative from the high school. And so I just wanted to comment on what you said real quick about like the involvement in the high school and also just like hearing from the bigger kids, because a lot of what we need for support is very, very different than what we need to give to the elementary schoolers. And so there's going to be a lot more intentionality that will have to go into those conversations with teachers and students and administrators in the high school. And they'll have some very different outcomes than what there will be from the elementary schools. So I would like to thank the person who was bringing that up, and also thank you, Mr. Balsey, for talking about that a little bit more. And know that I'm going to continue to be actively involved in presenting the needs of the high school. Thank you.
Okay, finally, sorry.
My name is Tracy Dustin-Eichler. I am the parent of a child at the Dothenburg School and a sixth grader at the middle school, and also married to the principal at the Dothenburg School. So have an inside track of that. I think I'm really grateful I think I would first want to say that I'm really grateful to the Hartford School District for having our kids in school for the last year and a half. I have friends all over, yeah, exactly. I have friends all over the country whose kids just went back to school, some in a hybrid fashion, some back in and out this fall. And so the fact that we've had our kids back at school all year last year and this year is due to some phenomenal efforts, and I am really grateful for that. I think my biggest concern about the idea that we would shorten the school day one day a week, that we would have an early release, is the increase or the continued loss of instructional time for our children. I think I really appreciate folks' concerns about the difficulties that it causes families, and I think that's an important piece of it, but I think we also need to think about the fact that our kids over the last 2 years have lost an enormous amount of instructional time. We had 3 months of remote learning, which was what it was, and despite lots of really great efforts, was hard. We had shortened school days last year. And I think continuing to remove instructional time is really challenging. And I think it's also particularly challenging for students who are academically vulnerable. My parent colleague who was here earlier talked a little bit about that. So I think that's something that we should really consider. I'm also really grateful for folks' creativity and thoughts about volunteering. I happen to manage volunteers professionally and have done so for many years. And I would ask us to also consider the impact of that on the building administrators. I live with someone who works many, many, many hours, and I'd like to see him. And the idea of him having to manage volunteers to cover his entire staff feels like a really overwhelming burden to put on our building administrators. And so thinking about the impacts of managing huge numbers of volunteers, I think, is a really important piece of the puzzle. I think some of the things I've heard, or I am hearing, it is clear that the timing of the implementation of this new curriculum is potentially problematic. And it seems like that may, pausing that or taking a different approach for the rest of this year may be a more effective solution for our teachers. I want to kind of humbly put forward a few other ideas that I am an outsider, and so I know that, and so they may not be useful, but I wonder if there is an opportunity. I think the elementary schools, at least, I'm not sure about the high school and middle schools, have maybe 3 or 4 PD days left open and for this year. And I'm wondering if instead of giving teachers an hour a week, can we just wipe the slate clean for those days and give the teachers those days as opportunities to get caught up on schoolwork and to do some of that planning, that deep planning and collaborative work and data review that they need to be doing. And particularly if we're pausing on the EL, then that may give them some additional relief of the stresses of this year. I also wonder if a pause on the EL curriculum could give you an opportunity to take a step back and talk with the teachers to more effectively plan an implementation that takes their needs deeply into account and gives you some more time to actually address those needs. So could we use some of the COVID funding that we're getting to talk with teachers about whether or not we want to add a couple of PD days at the beginning of the year so that they could take a deep dive and get caught up on some of the EL implementation? Could we use time for that? So I think maybe giving yourself a pause and then having some more time to plan long-term for an implementation that meets everyone's needs might be better. And I think the last thing I would say is that as a district, we've been talking a lot about diversity, equity, inclusion issues. And I think any decision that we make needs to be looked at through a DEI lens, through an equity lens, and really thinking through. I think my experience is that some of the places where we fail in our efforts around equity and inclusion are in some of these decisions that don't really seem like diversity, DEI questions, but actually have repercussions for some of our more marginalized populations that we're not thinking about. And so I would encourage us to have that lens as we make a decision about the structure of the school day and how that impacts our families and our kids. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just say, sorry, Coach. I'll just say
No,
something.
I was just thinking.
Okay.
Go ahead, Russ.
To answer the question about the middle school and the high school, there's a lot of stress with those teachers as well. In talking to my clients, the community, and others, I recognize there is the issue with the subs being short-staffed, and even some changes in the schedule have caused tremendous stress. So it's not as if, I mean, the elementary schools do have a specific issue that is really affecting those teachers, but across the board, our teachers need more support, or as much support as we can give them, and recognition that this is just it's a stressful, more stressful profession than it's ever been.
Point well taken.
There was several comments around doing a larger push out of information when it comes to vaccination clinics, and hoping that we would host them again. And to also consider the middle school as sixth graders would be in that category. So and I'll call to add that building to our thought process in the future.
Yeah, I can certainly do that. I assume they'll continue. We were selected for White River School right away, and I immediately said, what about Adequachi and Dothenburg? And I can email her tonight, the Department of Health, our representative, and see if we can get a clinic at the middle school, but also have another clinic at each of the elementaries. That's an easy one.
No, that's absolutely. There's some folks that would like us to consider a different feature when we do engagement meetings in fashion where we use hand raising from members of the community so that they would have an opportunity to ask their question in more real time, so that it would be similar to if they were sitting in the audience.
Absolutely. I think that's a great idea. And unfortunately, is in the planning of this, we didn't count for that, but yes, very definitely.
No, and once again, comments, because if we can get this much feedback in all the different topics we do, we're going to do a much better job.
It would be wonderful.
Exactly.
Yes,
There are a bunch of questions around the EL curriculum in terms of what type of contract have we signed? What would be the impact if we were to make modifications on it in terms of would there be extenuating costs to the district to shift back to something that has previously existed? So if there is any sort of modification of EL, I think the public would want to know, is there an economic impact to make those modifications?
We'll add that to our responses because it's a valid question and it's one that's been asked tonight, and every question that's been asked has substance. So thank you for that.
Agreed, Coach. That's one that I think people may be missing because we haven't addressed any particular idea as a solution. It's not that it's being deflected or avoided in any way. It's being cataloged as a potential solution. Folks know.
Is there any more comment from the public that is here? Is there any other? I'm sure there's many great things we haven't been able to discuss. Maybe if you could summarize that, Roy.
Yep, I would. Yep. More than anything, the folks want you to acknowledge that you've heard loud and clear that loss of instructional time is not supported by the community. That is consistently through here. I have a high school one. We haven't had that. The high school kids I've talked with since the notice of this meeting was posted all feel that early release would not be beneficial to them. Many students use the last hour of the day for band and choir and cherish the time to be creative together. These are a positive way for the students to work together and create joy, something which is greatly needed at this time. This would also alleviate the choppy schedule in January and give us 2 full, so it's something like that. Sorry. Oh, now, I apologize. Yeah, two questions ran together there. As for the teachers' needs, these I cannot speak to. I hope teachers, staff, and administrators will be present, present their specific struggles to the board. I appreciate all the time and energy each teacher and staff and administrator give to all of our kids. This dedication is amazing. Thank you.
Cool.
Yes, Olivia.
If I can, I would like to comment a little bit more on what that person was saying of how most people in high school really don't want to lose that extra time. There are a lot of students who are either involved in band or choir, or they're in a tech center, or they're working on a job, they're doing training, something like that. And so losing that hour in the day, although they may not be losing opportunities, would still be a real detriment to that, because there's a lot of structure that comes with that 1 hour. And so while there are students at the high school who are taking opportunities outside of our physical building, shutting down school an hour early once a week would be really helpful. And that's something that a lot of my peers have been at.
Cool. You know, that as I will continue to say, you know, all of this is important to those final next steps. I think Russ was pretty clear when he stated, you know, that the effect of the next meeting might be 70%. And as we're formulating the next steps, as we continue to move forward, we'll be addressing the feedback from the work that came out of tonight's meeting and just keep moving forward, you know, hopefully not backwards at all. You know, tonight was, again, you know, very, very informative and helpful for us as we make, you know, the next steps move.
And
Any other
I'll just
thoughts?
Yeah, I have one, Coach. And maybe in the next meeting, we can also talk about as a board, making it a permanent or semi-permanent, hopefully, agenda item to give updates on the struggles and whatever we're doing in regards to this issue for the next several board meetings. Wouldn't necessarily be a large topic, but it would be at least acknowledgement that we're continuing to think about the problem, continuing to look for solutions and what we've been able to accomplish.
Well, that's easy from an agenda perspective, just because we do the agenda. And that, you know, and that being said, as we also know, there is a portion of the agenda that talks about, you know, the health and care of the district itself. And so that short, you know, update is going to be very, very helpful. And, you know, it's one that we know how important it is to the community, and we'll just make sure that we continue to bring that forward.
We've had several people email me while we're meeting, volunteering to sub and support our teachers. So, pretty interesting. When they're rolling in.
See, that's what I mean about Hartford. That's what we do. You know, that's what we do. You know, it's just it's a special place. It is truly a special place.
Some requests to review the calendar and to look at if there's ways to modify how the in-service time is used and possibly connecting it to other vacation time. A one parent's plea or a person's plea to not abandon EL curriculum?
So review the current calendar for the rest of the year.
Yes, that's,
Well, as we heard from our union president, she felt that it's an amazing, curriculum. It's just, again, an amazing time to try to put forth an amazing curriculum.
if students want to get their comments to you, what's the best way for them to share their thoughts with the board?
I might refer to our student representative.
I was going to say, they have a direct link in the fact that they have two of their colleagues that are on the board, but they can also send information to Mr. DeBalzi, Mr. Hathorn, or any of the members that are here tonight.
All the school board addresses are on the school board page of the website, and so any school board member, Sydney is also a representative, student representative. Sydney Stillman, she couldn't be here tonight, so in addition to Olivia.
Yeah, and Miss Newton as well. Right.
Yeah. Go ahead, Olivia.
If there's specifically a high schooler who wants to talk to me, email me, approach me during the day. It's my job to listen to students, but I'm also happy to listen to middle schoolers and elementary school students too, because I want to represent as many of you as I can. Along with that, student representatives do some surveying to figure out what the priorities of students are. And so it's entirely possible for Sydney and Sydney, the other student representative, to survey the high school body to figure out what some of those big stressors are and then report on those more specifically.
That would be fantastic. Thanks, Olivia, and thank Sydney as well.
Is there a way to shift the camera? The community was wondering who was speaking, and it never actually shifted over to you, Olivia.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, try to make it easier for the public to talk, but makes it harder to see people at this table.
So Olivia, you want to introduce yourself as the student representative again?
Would have to get you up on the screen.
You have to speak.
Okay, my name is Olivia Merrill. I'm a senior in high school right now.
There it is.
My
there she is.
My email is merrillo22@hartfordschools.net. And Mr. DeBalzi, you said something about board representatives' information being posted too.
Yeah, I'm gonna make sure the students are on that page too, but all 5 school board members are on the school board page. Can't miss it on the right-hand column on the HSDVT website.
And my email, because I'm being asked to spell it out specifically, merrillo22@hartfordschools.net. And I am one of the 2 student representatives. I'm a senior on the school board, but I'd be happy to talk to anyone, middle schoolers, high schoolers who are more anxious to talk, elementary schoolers who want to be involved. Please feel free to email me, reach out. I would love to hear your concerns, and I really care about representing all of you out there.
The website has a lot of information that people are going to be seeking from tonight. So in addition to school board members' email addresses, of course, my email address is on there, but you can also find the volunteer application on the family page, or it's actually family resources. So if you're looking for that, you'll look in the left sidebar. All the information you need for that is right there. And again, you can always, everybody seems to know my email address because a lot of the correspondence that goes out comes from me. So you can email me with anything that you don't get an answer to. And I'll direct you in the right place or answer your question or send you to the right part of the website to find what you're looking for.
Cool.
One of the things that was brought up that I realized that I never answered was about busing. We are struggling with drivers. And that is a national shortage of school bus drivers. Our school bus drivers are paid fairly well, but they only work really 4 hours a day unless they can get trips to sports games or extracurricular activities. So if you know someone who has their CDL or has their bus driver license, which is an additional add-on to the CDL, please let us know. There isn't much I can do. I've done everything I can to get the buses to be able to meet the needs of every single route. We've been late because we're stuck. We don't have any more drivers. We haven't been able to recruit drivers. And usually they're temporary until we find someone, but they're doubling up. The reason they're late is because that's a driver from another route who goes back and picks up and changes the number and picks up another route.
Yeah.
So they can only flex so much to be able to get here, everybody here on time. So I'm really sorry. I don't have a great solution right now, but don't think that we're not trying to fix that. A lot of people working really hard to avoid those late buses and those delays, and it's a struggle. We don't like doing that. We've avoided that most of the days, but we're running into dead ends lately and have been forced to delay some of the pickups, and kids are getting to school late.
One of the questions in the comments was just, is it possible to rotate buses late?
Yeah,
And possibly
right.
changing the routes.
It has been a lot with the drivers on bus 31 and 32. So we apologize for that, but that thought has crossed my mind. Is there a way to rotate drivers so that it's not the same kids all the time? I will ask that question and see what we can do in that regard.
Were the drivers impacted by the vaccination
Yes.
is a question.
All of the contracted services for the school district had to comply with the vaccination mandate. That's the food service, the cleaning service, the mental health clinicians through our local mental health agency, HCRS, and the bus drivers. We had just a couple drivers that refused the vaccination, and that worsened the shortage. But again, we did very well overall. Everyone complied. Everyone, showed their proof of vaccination. We've had less than a handful of staff and a couple contracted services who wouldn't. That's their right.
Yep.
And accept that, and here we are. So. Anything else? Roy, you've done a terrific job. Thank you, Roy.
Yeah.
No
It's not
pressure.
easy.
Thank you. Great job.
Here, everybody, but that we're gonna make sure they know that nothing was lost. We have it all.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I guess the question that I would ask my fellow board members is, we're going to get summaries of all the Zoom questions. And unless more people want to come forth, at some point, we acknowledge we're not going to be able to deal directly with all the valuable input we're getting from Zoom. When's the appropriate time to adjourn? Because we want to hear everybody, but if.
It's also almost 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
There's a
Right.
practical limitation.
So I'm gonna suggest, because there's a point where you start losing, not only folks, but you start losing that that content piece. We've lost a number of folks you
I
know,
will fulfill my
Go ahead.
traditional role on the school board. I'd like to move that we adjourn.
Second.
so
All right.
there is a motion and a second. It's a non-debatable motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So moved. So we'd really like to thank the community, and that's the Hartford school community, for your participation.